Part 27. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 261. Miss Shen, I will never thank you for your kindness. This is a token passed down from my master's family. If you have any assignments in the future, all you need to do is come to Wang with this token. Wang will definitely live up to your trust. Shen Yizi opened the box, and inside was a hammer that was no longer than a thumb hammer. It's really mini and exquisite. The hammer is all silver white, very delicate and cute. Luo Yao walked in, saw the small hammer in her hand, and glanced at Wang Kantang. Are you from the Wanchui sect? The 10,000 Hammer sect is a weapon refining sect in the upper realm. It was very glorious and prosperous 10,000 years ago, but then gradually declined. Wang Kantang is from the Wanchui section. He didn't expect that there would be anyone here who could recognize him. Yes, I wonder who the senior is. He did not know Luo Yao. Luo Yao did not tell him the meaning of his name. My surname is Luo. I am just a casual cultivator, not worth mentioning. However, he was very happy to meet the fellow. He patted his belly and said to Shen Yi, "Girl, here are 2 small dishes, and I will have 2 drinks with Mr. Wang." "Okay, I'll do it right now." Shen Yizi put away the talisman pen and small hammer token and went to the kitchen. A quarter of an hour later, Shen Yizi used the ever-burning cauldron to prepare 4 delicious dishes and 1 soup, and took out a pot of wine. Luo Yao and Wang Kantang drank happily and chatted about their respective situations. Within 2 drinks, Wang Kantang was actually drunk. He was usually a tough guy, but now he was hugging the table leg and bursting into tears. Muttering, "Yu Niang. A man doesn't shed tears lightly, but he has not yet reached the point of being sad." Seeing Wang Kantang crying so sadly, Luo Yao couldn't help but sympathize with him. "Who is Yu Niang?" "Yu Niang is my beloved woman, but I can't find her no matter what. She is still pregnant with my child, and the child." "You did something sorry for her," Luo Yao guessed. Wang Kantang was still immersed in his own emotions and punched the ground hard. "The Immortal Medicine Sect. The Immortal Medicine Sect. You and I are at odds with each other." Luo Yao had a new guess. It seemed that Yu Niang's disappearance was related to the fairy doctor's sect. Qingbao saw Wang Kantang crying. His big eyes were full of sympathy, and he pulled Luo Yao's sleeve. "Master, Uncle Wang is crying so sadly, please help him." "My precious disciples and grandsons have spoken, how dare Luo Yao disobey?" Moreover, as people get older, their hearts become softer and they cannot bear to hear these tragic things. Even if Qingbao doesn't say anything, he will still offer to help. "Boy, this is the tracking talisman, take it." Luo Yao shot a talisman towards Wang Kantang. The tracing talisman, as the name suggests, is used to trace traces, including people. Burn the tracking talisman with an object contaminated with the breath of the person you are looking for. The tracking talisman will turn into a small crane and fly in the direction of that person. As long as you follow the crane, you will be able to find that person 9 times out of 10. Wang Kantang looked at the talisman that fell in his arms. Although his mind was a little confused, he knew that it was a good thing, so he hid it subconsciously. Then he hugged the legs of the table and fell asleep. Shen Yizi asked Ganwu to move the people into the guest room. She had also heard what Wang Kantang said earlier, and she always felt that the name Yu Niang sounded familiar. She must have heard it somewhere. The monk's memory was extraordinary. She recalled it along the timeline and remembered it. Yu Niang, isn't that Han Bailuo's mother? It can't be that coincidental, right? However, there are so many people with the same name and surname in the world that it is really impossible to confirm them with just one name. When Uncle Wang wakes up, she will confirm again. But if it were true, wouldn't Uncle Wang be Han Bailuo's father? Wang Kantang woke up in the middle of the afternoon. Looking at the unfamiliar but clean and warm house, he was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that he had been drunk before. There is a porcelain bottle on the low table in front of the bed, with a note under the bottle, "Hangover pills." He poured out the pills and ate them, and suddenly his head, which was a little dizzy, cleared up. The body doesn't feel so uncomfortable anymore. He opened the door and walked out, and there was a burst of laughter in the yard. The big cocky dog, the snow-white cat, the delicate and lovely boys and girls, and the kind old man. The chrysanthemums and cannas in the courtyard are in bloom. All this is as beautiful as a painting. "Uncle Wang, are you awake?" Shen Yizi discovered him. Wang Kantang felt nervous when he thought about his behavior when he was drunk, and nodded stiffly. "Uncle Wang, I want to show you something." Shen Yizi took out a painting. The painting is of Han Beiluo. She drew this while Wang Kantang was asleep. Whether the Yueniang he mentioned and the one she knew were the same person can be known by looking at his reaction when he saw this painting. When Wang Kantang's eyes fell on the painting, his pupil suddenly shrank to the size of a pinhead, which was a sign of extreme shock. He almost grabbed the painting in his hand. "Yueniang, where did you get this painting?" "I painted it myself, and the person in the painting is a friend of mine. Her name is Han Beiluo." Han Beiluo? Wang Kantang had also heard about the former eldest lady of the Han family. Even though he was deaf to what was happening outside the window, he also heard a lot of gossip about her. He heard that she had a stunning appearance after losing weight. He heard that she broke off her engagement with the second son of the Zhao family. He heard that her maternal grandfather was Dean Kui of Zhengrong Academy. However, he had never seen her look after losing weight. Appearance. It turns out that she looks like this, and she is almost carved out of the same mold as Yueniang. Wang Kantang could not help but have a guess in his mind. Shen Yizi then said, "Her mother is also called Yueniang." Wang Kantang could hardly stand. As far as he knew, Han Beiluo's mother had passed away many years ago. Unsurprisingly, Wang Kantang is Han Beiluo's biological father. Shen Yizi sighed inwardly. How coincidental things were, but the father and daughter were in Langcheng together, but they didn't know each other's existence. It can be said that worldly affairs confuse people. But now that we know it, it's not too late. Just in the middle, what happened? Wang Kantang stared blankly at the people in the painting, and slowly told the story of how he met Han Beiluo's mother Yueniang. 17 years ago, Wang Kantang was accidentally involved in a space rift and fell into the Tianyuan world. He was seriously injured and fell into a coma. When he woke up, he found that he had been saved by a beautiful woman, Yueniang. The man is handsome and the woman is beautiful, and they get along day and night. It is natural that they will be in love for a long time. Later, Yueniang became pregnant, and at this time, her enemies came to her. Those people were sent by the Immortal Medical Section. As for why the Immortal Medical Sect hunted her down, Yueniang didn't tell Wang Kantang the inside story, or in other words, she didn't have time. At that time, Wang Kantang's injuries were not completely healed and he was no match for the Immortal Medical Section. In order to protect Yueniang, Wang Kantang placed her in a secluded place and lured people away himself. In the end, he was forced to the edge of the cliff, and was slapped by someone from the Immortal Medical Sect, and he fell down the cliff. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 262. When he woke up, he found that he was more seriously injured, with all the meridians in his body severed. He was almost eaten by a wild beast, but a passing herb collector saved him. When he recovered from his injuries and was able to go to the ground, he couldn't wait to find Yueniang. Unfortunately, when he returned, Yueniang was no longer where she was. He searched in many ways, but more than 10 years later, there was still no news. He had almost given up hope, but who would have expected that at this moment he would learn that he was actually in the same city as the Yueniang he was looking for. She gave birth to their child, but he did not know the child. Thinking of this, Wang Kantang's heart was broken, and he squatted down in pain while holding the painting. Luo Yao Yao gave him a slap. "Why are you crying? Although the woman is gone, doesn't she still have a daughter? She is already a father, and she is still so unstable." Wang Kantang's sobs stopped. Shen Yizi also followed suit. If Beiluo knows that he has a father, he will definitely be very happy. Wang Kantang slowly raised his head and wiped away his tears. "Beilu, I have not fulfilled my responsibility as a father in these years." He was filled with regret. The Han family is one of the three major families in Langcheng. Common people are very keen on the gossip of these wealthy families, and the gossip of the Han family basically focuses on Han Beiluo, so Wang Kantang is no stranger to Han Beiluo. In the past, he had just heard about her things and didn't take them to heart. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but slap himself twice. Polu suffered so much at a young age, and it was all his fault that he did not recognize her earlier. Shen Yizi advised, "Uncle Wang, I can't blame you after all. Han Beiluo had been poisoned before and was obese. How can he see the similar outline to Yu Niang? It's useless to dwell on the past, it's better to start making amends with Beilu from now on." There was a glimmer in Wang Kantang's eyes. "To make up for it, yes, I want to make up for Beiluo. I want to make up for all the debt I have owed to her over the years, and I will also take Yu Niang's share with me. Girls Hizzy, tell me quickly. Where is Bolo now?" After learning about Han Beiluo's whereabouts, Wang Kantang couldn't wait a moment and wanted to find her immediately. Shen Yizi managed to hold him back. "Uncle Wang, do you plan to go like this?" Wang Kantang looked at himself and felt embarrassed. On weekdays, he doesn't pay attention to what he wears at all. Now he is wearing an old clothes that has been worn for several years. It is dusty, and his face is unshaven. It seems that his hair has not been washed for several days. The more he thinks about it, I feel more and more ashamed. He himself didn't feel ashamed, but when he thought about it, if he appeared in front of Beilu like this, would she be disgusted? Shen Yizi stopped him not because of this, but because he felt that he was too eager and excited now. When people are anxious, things can easily go wrong. He needed to calm down more now to calm down his mood. Otherwise, she was really afraid that he would scare her when he got in front of Han Beiluo. "Don't be anxious, at least make some preparations. After all, the distance from here to Dan City is not short." If she hadn't held him back just now, he would have walked off empty-handed. Shen Yizi lent Wang Qiantang a storage bag and filled it with a lot of food, clothing, and some interesting gadgets. "This is what I prepared for Beilu. Please help me bring it to Beilu. This package contains some food prepared for you." Shen Yizi stuffed in another package. "In addition, this is a fate testing talisman that I received from my master. Although the father-daughter relationship between you and Beilu has been basically determined, in order to be sure, it is better to test it." Wang Kantang was moved when he looked at the things Shen Yizi had prepared for him. "Beilu is lucky to have a friend like you." Shen Yizi shook his head. "It's not just because of Beilu. You are a master of weapon refinement. Can't I seize the opportunity to please you?" These words made Wang Kantang burst into laughter, but he knew in his heart that she said this just to make him happy. How could she need to please him? Having packed her bags, it was already getting late, but Wang Kantang couldn't wait any longer, so he said goodbye and headed towards the pier. From here to Dangkong, it is most convenient and quickest to take the waterway. Having obtained the talisman pen, Shen Yizi tried it that night. In the space hut, she knelt down and sat behind a long black desk with an upturned head. She dipped her pen in spiritual ink and was about to start writing when she was interrupted by Yi Chang. "You just started casually." Shen Yizi asked back, "What if? At least you should take a bath and burn incense to calm down. You are too careless." Although Yi Chang is not deeply involved in the talisman and seal art, he has lived for such a long time and has dabbled in the four major skills of Danfu array and weapon. However, he is not very talented in the two skills of talisman and weapon, so he has not studied in depth. On the contrary, he is relatively proficient in Dan and formation. He still remembers that when he first learned to draw talisman, there would be a long series of procedures before starting to draw talisman. Bathing, hand washing, burning incense, and calming the air were all light tasks. Sometimes he even prepared for it 3 days before drawing the talisman. Even so, his success rate in drawing talismans is a bit horrendous. Now, Shen Yazi has done nothing, just picked up the pen and started painting. This is too reckless. Just as Yi Chang was recalling his sad experience of learning to draw talisman in the past, Shen Yazi was already writing next to him. The pen moves like a dragon and a snake, like clouds and flowing water. The runes flashed with inspiration and disappeared. Fukin. The whole process took less than 2 minutes and was incredibly smooth. Shen Yazi himself was a little surprised. I think you'd better. Yi Chang turned his head, and when he saw the drawn talisman on the table, his eyes almost popped out of his head, and the entire snake body collapsed into a straight line due to shock. Shen Yazi picked up the talisman and admired it, then realized that his words had stopped suddenly. What do you think? No, it's nothing. Yu Chang rushed over very uncomfortably, looking left and right around the talisman seal. The spiritual ink on it was not yet dry. It could be seen that it had just been painted not long ago, but how could this be possible? He was also going to tell Shen Yazi about his past experience in learning to draw talisman, so that she could learn more. After all, drawing talisman is a profound knowledge. She must be calm, not impetuous. To put it bluntly, it must be able to withstand blow. It doesn't matter if you don't succeed, because there are only a few who succeed in the beginning, and failure is normal. But now, he feels that it's a good thing that he didn't say these words, otherwise where would his face be? But he still wanted to struggle. It seems that you are very lucky. You succeeded in painting the first time. If you keep working hard, I believe you can do it. He attributed Shen Yazi's success in drawing talisman for the first time to luck. He said he believed she could do it, but in fact he was still skeptical. But next, Shen Yazi told him through actions that her success was not based on luck, but on strength. She is a genius at Fu Xuan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 263. The second picture, the third picture, the fourth picture. 1 stack, 2 stacks, 3 or 4 stacks. Amulet for avoiding dust, talisman for fierce fire, talisman for lightening one's body, talisman for breathing. Watching Shen Yazi draw countless talismans as easily as paddling water, Yi Chang experienced a process of shock, and numbness. Logically speaking, as a powerful person who has lived for tens of thousands of years, he should have developed a calm mentality that allows him to remain unmoved despite the great storms and waves. However, the fact is that he is so calm. Although the drawings she drew were all low-level first-level talismans, who else has such a terrifying 100% success rate? Anyone. Even the legendary talisman saint couldn't do it, right? Shen Yazi didn't stop until the spiritual energy in her body was exhausted. She was tired of drawing, so she simply put down her pen and stretched her wrist. She saw Yi Chang staring at her like a monster. Why are you looking at me like that? I advise you to keep a low profile and be kind, Yi Chang said quietly, being struck to the point of doubting Snake's life. You are definitely not normal. Who can draw one picture after another like you? And each picture is full of spirit and perfect in appearance. It's so unscientific. I tell you, you must remember to hide your clumsiness when you go out. otherwise the consequences will be serious. Shen Yizi saw that what he said was serious and nodded in agreement. Mu Xiu is bound to be destroyed by Lin Feng. If she is so good, she will definitely attract a lot of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Of course, she must hide her humility and keep a low profile until she becomes completely powerful. Mom, I want to play too. Qingbao came over, leaned on the table and grabbed the talisman pen. Just now he saw his mother painting paintings and he was already greedy. Shen Yizi didn't stop him. Anyway, there was no danger in drawing the talisman. Even if it failed, the talisman paper would at most be burned by spiritual power. Oh, although Qingbao's whole body is full of spiritual energy now, he has not officially entered the realm of cultivation, so he probably doesn't know how to operate spiritual energy, let alone export it. When drawing symbols, the spiritual energy in the body must be output evenly and injected into the runes under the pen. There must be no mistakes or omissions in the whole process. If the spiritual energy is input too much, too little, or interrupted, it will lead to failure. She was able to control the output of spiritual energy so precisely because she had previously repaired Wan Kantang's meridians. Qingbao didn't even know what spiritual energy was, let alone achieve this. Look, the little guy doesn't even hold the pen in a standard way. Since his fingers were too short and fat, he couldn't hold the pen at all, so he just held it in his hand and slid it randomly on the paper like ghostly drawings. But the next moment, Shen Yizi felt the shock that Yi Chang had experienced from her before. Because Qingbao actually drew the talisman. Although the brush strokes are very young, rough, and round, just like a child's graffiti, the talisman is indeed completed. It is also a relatively difficult fire talisman among the first-level talisman seals. As for the stack of talismans she placed on the table, the top one was clearly the fire talisman. So this baby was drawn exactly like her? Our Qingbao is so awesome he succeeded in drawing the talisman for the first time, muah. Qingbao smiled brightly after being kissed, and became more interested. He continued to doodle seriously on the table. Yu Chain next to him had been struck so hard that his eyes were dull. It's okay to be compared to Shen Yizi, but now he is actually worse than a 3-year-old baby. His dignity as a dignified Zhuhua master is really gone. But looking at the talisman drawn by Qingbao, he felt a sense of great pride. This is the cub he raised. He raised it. Finally, Qingbao finished drawing the remaining talisman papers before he stopped without finishing. And his success rate is also a terrifying 100%. Yi Chang, this mother and son are so terrifying. I'm done with it. When eating the next morning, Luo Yao Yao asked, "How was your practice yesterday? Did you succeed in drawing the talisman for the first time?" "It doesn't matter if you didn't. The first failure was dash." Before the word normal could be uttered, a stack of charming and perfect talismans and seals were handed to him. "Looks like there are at least 20 or 30 pictures." Luo Yao Yao took it over. Yes, the spiritual power on it did belong to his apprentice, and the spiritual ink also exuded a fresh smell, which could only be found in newly painted talismans. So, his little apprentice drew so many talisman for the first time last night? Luo Yao Yao covered his chest, he had to slow down. Shen Yizi saw that he was silent and thought he was dissatisfied. "Had I known it earlier, I would have taken out more." In fact, she wasted none of the 120 blank talisman papers Luo Yao Yao gave her, and drew all of them into talisman seals. Of course, part of it is Qingbao's credit. With Yi Chang's previous reminder, she only took out about 20 cards, keeping the success rate at about 20%. For a beginner, this result shouldn't be bad, right? Looking at Luo Yao Yao's expression now, she couldn't help but regret it. "Good disciple, take these talisman papers and keep up the good work." Luo Yao Yao took out a large handful of blank talisman papers and stuffed them into Shen Yizi. She took her pile of talisman seals and walked out the door leisurely with her hands behind her hands. Haven't even finished the meal. Shen Yizi looked at his back with some doubts. It seemed that the master was not dissatisfied with his performance. As soon as he walked out of the door, Luo Yaoyao quickly sped up, took a long stride, shrunk down an inch, and left the village in an instant. In a deserted place, he took out the pile of talismans and seals, touched them preciously, and smiled so much that the corners of his mouth reached behind his ears. Ha, 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 he put his hands on his hips and raised his head to the sky and laughed 3 times. I, Luo Yaoyao, have a successor. I didn't expect that in the Tianyuan world, a place where birds don't shit, I can meet such a good seedling. Now he has become his apprentice. When he thinks of this, he can't control his excitement. After a while, Luo Yaoyao and his party came to Changfeng calmly. Changfeng is sitting in a pavilion on the top of a tree carving a doll. Although the doll has not yet been formed, its expression already has the charm of a precious treasure. Coming, he greeted calmly. Here we come. Luo Yaoyao sat down cross-legged opposite him. Seeing that Changfeng was focusing on the carved doll and completely ignoring himself, Luo Yaoyao couldn't hold it in any longer, so he took out a bunch of talismans and threw them on the low table in front of him seemingly casually. Changfeng glanced at it casually. Huh? Who drew this talisman? Every person has different spiritual power and different writing styles, so the same runes will be drawn differently. Just like fonts, everyone is different. So he recognized at a glance that this was not written by Luo Yaoyao. And these symbols are all newly drawn. This is a bit incredible. After all, even Luo Yaoyao, who has reached the state of perfect qi refining, only has enough spiritual energy in his body to draw a few first-level talisman seals. And it is impossible to draw so many at once. Where did these symbols come from? Luo Yaoyao tried her best to suppress the corners of her mouth that wanted to turn up, and said calmly, "Didn't I tell you before, I took that girl Yizi as my apprentice. This is what she painted last night. It's the first time. To achieve this result, it's not bad. It's a bit of my style back then, and it finally doesn't tarnish my reputation. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome." Author, 955. Chapter 264. Changfeng still doesn't know his virtue? This is because you got an advantage and behaved well, just to show off in front of him. But even though he knew it, he was still very angry. How come this bad old man is so lucky? The eldest disciple is extremely talented and possesses the Hunyuan spiritual root. It is enough that he has mastered the legendary Hunyuan manual that no one can refine. The little disciple is also such a monster, and his kung fu has reached the first level in just a few days. A talisman seal master. Why doesn't he have such luck? Obviously he is no worse than old man Luo. However, this is not what makes him most angry. What makes him most angry is that old man Luo's 2 apprentices or a pair gave birth to him a young apprentice with even more evil qualifications. Thinking again about the disciples in his temple, Changfeng had the urge to drive them all out. There is no seed player who can let him show off. As expected, Luo Yaoyao received a wave of envious, jealous, and hateful looks from her bad friends, and Luo Yaoyao went back with a happy heart. Now, you drew these talismans yourself, so you should keep them yourself. A master would never covet something belonging to his apprentice. Luo Yaoyao returned the pile of talismans and seals to Shen Yizi. After Shen Yizi got it, he didn't keep it as he thought. Instead, he changed hands and gave it to Xiaming. Take these talismans and use them to speed up the construction. With these talismans, he can feel much more relaxed. To use a simple analogy, if he were to cast a fire spell, he would need 10 units of aura. So if you use the fire talisman, it is estimated that you only need about 0.1 units. Just input a little bit of insignificant spiritual energy to make the talisman take effect. Although Xiaming originally had the spirit restoring liquid provided by her, It took a long time from taking the spirit-restoring liquid to filling up her body with spiritual energy and then casting the spell, at least 10 minutes. But now there is no such problem. Using Fuzhuan can be seamlessly connected without spending extra time. Can the construction progress be greatly accelerated? Thinking about this, the smile on Shen Yizi's face deepened. Xiaoming took the stack of talismans in a daze and fell into doubts about life. Her casual gesture made it seem as if what she was handing him was not the talisman seal that everyone outside asked for, but a pile of papyrus. It wasn't until Shen Yizi left that he suddenly came back to his senses and looked at the talisman in his hand, an astonishing light bursting out of his eyes. Body tempering pills, spiritual recovery liquid, free money like talismans. What else will happen in the future? But, isn't she a little too wasteful? Talisman seals, which are valuable but not marketable, are actually used for construction. If those people outside find out, I'm afraid they shouldn't scold her for wasting her wealth. Thinking about that scene in his mind, he couldn't help but smile happily. Looking at the way she doesn't take the talisman seriously, you know that these talismans are nothing to her. This also proves that she has a lot of good things in her hands. This Shen Yizi is really a treasure. A worker pushed a cart of lumber past, and the ruts left 2 deep marks on the ground. It was obvious at first glance that the cart of lumber was very heavy, and the worker was struggling to pull it, and his back was arched. "Stop," Xiaoming said to the worker, then patted the light feather talisman on the car and moved out of the way. "Try again." The worker was a little confused and pushed the car again. As a result, the whole car floated. His body was driven by inertia and almost fell down. "Here, what's going on?" The worker was confused. "Mr. Xia just didn't use magic." Xiaoming laughed loudly and shook the talisman in his hand. "Did you see it? This is the talisman that Miss Shen gave me. After using it, the effect is the same as the spell. With this in the future, the progress will be greatly accelerated." The worker pushed the feather light cart away with a dazed look on his face. Soon after, the news about the talisman was spread on the construction site. After experiencing the benefits of the talisman, everyone was excited and felt that work had never been so easy. "This is not work, it's just like playing." Everyone's respect for Shen Yizi increased. After that, Shen Yizi secretly increased the success rate of drawing talismans by 10% every day. Luo Yaoyao was shocked, but later he became accustomed to it. She has become immune to her behavior of bringing out a thick stack of talismans and seals every day. On the construction site, with the blessing of the talisman and seal, a large house covering several hectares of land gradually appeared in outline. This house is the main building of the villa. It faces the vast Tianzhou Lake in the south and the rolling Qingmang Mountain in the north. It has pavilions, bridges, flowing water, rockery and stone scenery inside. There are large courtyards with small courtyards, and 9 bens. Cloister. However, in Shen Yizi's plan, this house is only the center of the villa. In the first circle, she plans to include Tianzhou Lake and part of Qingmang Mountain. Build a few water buildings on Tianzhou Lake and build a few painted boats. Then you can enjoy boating and fishing on the lake. In Qingmang Mountain, a hunting ground was built to provide hunting projects. For the second round, she planned to build a horse farm. It is best to find a natural horse farm connected to the hunting ground. For the hunting grounds and horse farms, Shen Yizi went into the mountains early in the morning to check out the sites, taking Qingbao and Nian Nian with him. But as soon as she entered the mountain, she sent the 2 of them into space. Let them play by themselves. Shen Yizi checked the terrain and made marks along the way. She planned to make the hunting ground semi-open, with most of the area enclosed and 2 openings, the entrance and the exit. A formation is set up at the exit to allow ordinary beasts to enter. As for monsters and ferocious beasts like lions and tigers, they are all kept outside. In this way, guests who come to hunt don't have to worry about being killed by the animals. The trees get thicker and darker as you go further in, and the light becomes dimmer. You can then clean it up appropriately to remove dangerous factors, but you can't damage the environment too much. Otherwise it will lose its authenticity and fun. At that time, we can also plan some large-scale real-life games, such as Escape in the Forest, to increase the fun. Shenyazi roughly delineated the scope of the hunting ground, and then continued in. Catch some prey along the way and bring it to the space to raise, or collect some medicinal materials. When you encounter an environment suitable for planting medicinal materials, you can also sow some medicinal seeds. Although she has space, wouldn't this ready-made land be wasted if she doesn't make use of it? At noon, Shenyazi came to a hill only a few hundred meters away. When she reached the top of the mountain and looked down, she couldn't help but feel pleasantly surprised. At the foot of the mountain is a large flat valley, surrounded by the surrounding mountains, like a green gauze ruffled by the wind, beautiful and fresh. In the valley, there is also a blue lake, full of water, like a drop of blue tears. Shenyazi used his light body technique to fly all the way, and soon came down the mountain to the valley. When you look down from the top of the mountain, the valley seems not very big, but when you really get into it, you realize that the area is still very vast. She came to the lake. The water was so clear that she could see the fish and stones in it clearly. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 265. Shenyazi released several dolls. Let's have a picnic here at noon, okay? Okay, the three of them said in unison, and the clear milking sound echoed in the valley, stirring up a flock of birds. You guys just play here, don't go too far, and don't get too close to the water. Mom will prepare lunch right now. The three of them agreed and immediately ran away in a swarm, enjoying themselves wildly on the grass. Shenyazi couldn't help but smile as he looked at it and took out various ingredients from the space. Ah, Nian Nian exclaimed not far away. Shenyazi immediately put down the fish he was holding and ran over. What's wrong, Nian Nian? It suddenly became very hot. Nian Nian took out the long tooth she wore around her neck. Shenyazi felt it, and it was confirmed. Take it off first. She took off the tusks. Unexpectedly, the moment it left Nian Nian's neck, the long tooth actually floated up on its own, and the tip of the tooth pointed directly at the lake, as if receiving some kind of call. Shenyazi looked at the confused Nian Nian and wondered if the long teeth touched some important plot point, right? Is it an opportunity or a trap? I'll save it for you first, and then we can go find out after we finish eating. Shenyazi put the long tooth into the space. Once it entered the space, it calmed down without any abnormality. While eating, Shenyazi asked Yi Chang to explore the lake. How about it? Yu Chang shook the water from his tail. There's nothing special down there, but there is a dark mountain. I always feel something is wrong when I look at it. Mountain. After dinner, Shenyazi sent Qingbao and Yuanbao into the space, but left Nian Nian outside. The tusks were left behind by her mother. The movement it made just now must be related to her. It would be better to take her with her. Maybe she is the key to unlocking the plot. If she is in danger, it will not be too late to send her into space. Let's go down and explore. Shenyazi picked up Nian Nian, took out the tusks, hung the water beads that Mr. Feng had given her when she was at Prince Chen's mansion on her waist, and put them into the water. The effect of the water beads was really magical. After entering the water, her breathing was completely unimpeded, as if she were walking on the ground. The same was true for Nian Nian being held in her arms. Following the direction of Long Ya, Shenyazi dived all the way down. As he went down, the lake became darker and darker. From time to time, fish passed by the two of them, and the water plants swayed. The surroundings were quiet, except for the occasional sound of water when a big fish swam by. This is an underwater world that is completely different from the land. Nianyan's eyes were full of curiosity, and from time to time she stretched out her hand to tease the passing fish. Seeing the fish running away in panic, she couldn't help but laugh. Her laughter was like a bell. Finally, Shen Yizi followed Long Ya's instructions and came to a dark mountain that looked like a creeping giant beast. "Is this the mountain you were talking about earlier?" "Yu Chang, that's right." The long tooth in Shen Yizi's hand suddenly came out and hit the mountain wall. She was startled and quickly reacted to grab the red rope threaded into the tusks. However, the momentum of the tusks was so great that she failed to catch it for a moment, and was even pushed into the mountain wall. At the moment when she was about to hit him, she turned to one side and lost most of her strength. However, something unexpected happened. The moment Long Tusk came into contact with the mountain wall rippled like water, and Long Tusk rushed in. Shen Yizi and Nian also fell in together. As soon as he raised his eyes, the surrounding scene had completely changed. In front of you is a palace, with a plaque on the palace saying, "Fenki Palace." The closed bronze door exudes a simple atmosphere. And she was standing at the foot of the steps in front of the palace. There is a void behind you. There are no currents or fish around, and the mountain is nowhere to be seen. It seems like another world here. They must have passed through a barrier just now, right? The tusks held in her hand had settled down and fell quietly on the red rope. Nian looked around curiously. "Aunt Chen, where is this?" Shen Yizi shook his head. "I don't know either." Yi Chang said, "It should be a small independent space. This long tooth is the key to enter this space." Shen Yizi held Nian and stepped up the steps. There was a lock hanging on the bronze door, and the keyhole was shaped like a small hole. "Isn't the key to this door also the same tusk?" Shen Yizi decided to give it a try. After thinking about it, he decided to let Nian do it. She is the owner of Longtooth, and she should open this door. Nian was held by her, inserted the tusks into the keyhole, twisted it, and the lock opened with a click. When Nian took back her hand, a long and slender needle suddenly came out of the keyhole and pricked her. A drop of blood suddenly appeared in her palm. Shen Yizi was shocked and quickly backed away while holding Nian, holding her hand and checking carefully. "Nian, are you okay?" Nian shook her head. It was just a prick, and the pain was nothing to her. Shen Yizi was still worried. His consciousness traveled around her body and found nothing unusual. "Is that needle just for pricking Nian?" Yi Chang thought of a possibility. Perhaps it is to test the bloodline of the person who opened the lock. This place is probably left by Nian's ancestors. If the person who opened the lock is not Nian, then something unexpected may have happened by now. At this moment, the door opened. As if responding to Yu Chang's words. It seems he was right. Shen Yizi put the long tooth back on Nian's neck, and probed into the temple with his spiritual sense, but was blocked by a force. There should be a formation in the temple, and no spiritual sense detection was allowed. Yu Chang took the initiative to ask Ying, "I'll go take a look." However, after Yi Chang entered, no news was sent back, and he seemed to have disappeared. "What is the situation in this temple?" "That's all, let's go in and take a look. Now that the way we came has disappeared, if we want to go out, we can only go into the temple and look for an exit." Shen Yizi held Nian's hand and slowly stepped into the palace. The moment she entered, she was almost blinded. The palace was very empty, but it was filled with splendor and splendor. The pavilion under her feet was a small piece of jade worth thousands of gold. It was so colorful that she felt like she was stepping on a mountain of gold and silver. The stone pillars as thick as a bathtub are made of rose stones, with various strange-shaped animals carved on them. The, pronounced the same as Yeu, has the head of a dragon and the body of a tiger. It is said that this is a strange beast that eats people. Yanwei, who has the head of a human and the body of a snake, is a kind of who is mainly worshipped. It is said that worshipping this kind of can dominate the world. There is the auspicious beast Bai, who is covered in snow-white body and speaks human words. There are 99 of these thick, tall, and colorful pillars in the hall. With the support of these giant pillars, the entire hall is vast and empty, like a temple in ancient times. On the top of the head, there are fist-sized luminous pearls inlaid, like stars in the sky, illuminating the entire hall. On the stone walls on both sides, murals with bright lines and unrestrained style are carved. Shenyazi took Nian forward and looked at them one by one. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 266. In the first mural, there is a giant bird with gorgeous feathers that covers the sky and the sun. It is brilliant and beautiful, red as fire. It is the legendary bird Phoenix. The Phoenix landed and turned into a person. The person had a majestic appearance, strong bones and muscles, and was dressed wildly. His hair was disheveled, and a string of bone chains hung around his neck. His upper body was bare, and his arms and chest were painted with large figures. A large area of colorful paint, the lower body is only covered by a leather skirt, and 2 words are written next to it, Li Huang. He held a huge axe in his hand and led a group of people behind him to cut down the mountains and cut down the forest. After that, houses were erected, roads appeared, and commercial markets prospered. A century later, Emperor Li died and turned into a phoenix again. He was born out of the fire and was born as a baby. When the baby grew up, he once again looked like Emperor Li. He led his army to fight everywhere, expanded his territory, and established a new empire. Human civilization Daifeng dynasty. After that, there were rebirths again and again. Each time, Li Wang repeated the previous operations, making the Daifeng dynasty more prosperous and powerful. However, every time he bathed in the fire, his size became smaller and his strength seemed to be constantly weakening. By the last time, he seemed to know that he would never be reborn again, or maybe he was tired of being a wise king over and over again, so he completely let himself go, acted wantonly, was moody and angry, wasted people and money, indulged in enjoyment, and killed innocent people indiscriminately, resulting in the people were in dire straits and the people were complaining, but he still went his own way. He is like a foolish king. Then he was revolted. He seemed to have expected this day, and when the rebel army invaded the imperial city, he was still reclining on the dragon chair leisurely, eating the grapes fed to his mouth by the beauty. That stern and careless look almost shot out from the mural. The mural ends abruptly here. So, this Phoenix Senior Emperor Li, he was the foolish king who was criticized verbally and written by history books in the previous dynasty. He was the benevolent king who loved the people like his own son and was politically clear, and he was the founding king who created a prosperous era for the Tianyuan Empire. The central idea revealed in the mural should be this, right? If people outside knew this, I wonder what they would think. Shenyazi was distracted from the murals and found that he had arrived in front of the temple without knowing it. When she raised her head, she was horrified. On dozens of white jade steps, there was a person sitting on a wide chair made of dragon bones. Looking at his face, it is clear that he is the Emperor Li in the mural. As for Yi Chang, he held him in his hand and poked him, as if he was an interesting toy. Shenyazi was shocked. She had not noticed the existence of this person at all before. No, he was not a human at all, but a phoenix that had lived for who knows how long. No wonder this palace is called Fenki Palace. It seemed that he had finally had enough. Li Wang let go of his hand. Yu Chang immediately returned to Shenyazi impatiently and got into her sleeves, trembling and not even daring to raise his head. "Are you okay?" Shenyazi sent him a message quietly. The sound of his teeth chattering came, "It's okay, It's just that the bloodline level has been suppressed, and my brain is a little knotted. In my heart, I'm really scared to death. Facing an innate divine beast like the phoenix, the sky-swallowing python has to take a step back. Not to mention that he is still just a little snake that has not fully evolved. When he was pinched and kneaded arbitrarily by that man just now, he couldn't even think of resisting, and his whole mind was numb. Shen Yizi saw Emperor Li getting up from the dragon chair, walking down the steps, and walking towards him. Sweat broke out on her palms, and she hid her thoughts behind her back. Although her actions were completely meaningless in front of this big boss. Nian, on the other hand, had no idea what fear was, and a small head popped up from behind her, staring at Emperor Li. "Little girl, come here." Li Wang stood a few steps in front of Shen Yizi and stretched out a hand towards Nian. His voice is like the clanging of gold and stone, rich in texture, exuding nobility and majesty. This voice alone is irresistible. Nian did not respond immediately, but looked towards Shen Yizi. Li Wang also looked over. Shen Yizi, who was being watched by the boss, felt trembling in his heart, but still managed to hold on. "I wonder who you are thinking about." What reassured her was that the boss was not angry, but had a look of doubt and thought on his face. "Well, what's the relationship?" "It's the relationship between the ancestor and the granddaughter of who knows how many generations." Shen Yizi almost fell down. Li Wang didn't speak anymore, he just took Nian and held him in his arms. He turned around and took a step forward. When his steps fell, he was already back in front of the dragon chair. Because he was going too fast, there were after images behind him. He turned around and sat down on the dragon chair, his fingers touching his forehead. "What are you doing, boss?" Shen Yizi was communicating with Yi Chang in his mind. "Initiation of spiritual consciousness, transfer all your cultivation and memories to Nian." Yi Chang sounded envious. This phoenix ancestor is really kind to his descendants. It would be great if he could also meet such an ancestor. What happens after the initiation? It naturally dissipated. The phoenix is said to be immortal, but what in this world is immortal? Even gods can't do it. But he could have lived longer, but the spiritual energy in this world is thin and he can't sustain it at all. The phoenix's consumption, in one breath, would probably consume all the spiritual energy within hundreds of miles. You should have seen from the murals that after his last rebirth, he completely let himself go. He probably knew that his life was not long, and he even had the will to die. Otherwise, how could those mortals succeed in the uprising and kill him? Kicked off the throne? I guess he is already tired of being the emperor now he is actually dead, and all that remains is a trace of his soul. Shen Yizi felt a sense of despair in his heart for no reason. At this moment, the ground suddenly began to shake, and rocks continued to fall from above. "Is there an earthquake?" Shen Yizi hurriedly held onto a pillar next to him. "Earthquake? This is a separate small space. Where did the earthquake come from? This is..." Emperor Li looked outside the palace. "The space is about to collapse, and you don't even give me this little time." The tone was regretful, but the expression was still calm. Qinkai's voice suddenly sounded in Shen Yizi's mind. "Quick, take this opportunity to find the boundary pearl and fuse it with me. Otherwise, when the space collapses, you will be involved in the space turbulence, and your situation will be worrying. The boundary pearl is the center of a small world, but the boundary pearl is usually hidden very deep, and only at this moment can it be found." Shen Yizi directly asked the boss for help. "I have a way to prevent the collapse of space. Can Senior help me find the boundary beads? This big guy has been here for who knows how many years, and he is far more familiar with this place than she is, and his cultivation level is much better than hers." Instead of looking around like a headless chicken, she might as well ask him for help directly. Hearing her words, Li Wang's eyes flashed with light. He closed his eyes for a moment, and his free hand reached directly into the void and grabbed a bead. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 267. The bead is as big as an egg, empty and solid, like a ball of light. He threw the boundary bead over, but Shenyazi did not catch it with his hands due to Kinkaiu's reminder. The boundary pearl can be said to be the embodiment of the law of space. There are space gaps all over it. She doesn't have the strong strength of the big brother. If she grabs it directly, she doesn't need her whole hand. She quickly performed a small movement technique with her finger seals and drew a circle in front of her. The boundary bead just fell into the circle and was transferred to the space. The next step is to look at Kinkaiu. How long will the integration take? Okay, Kinkaiu's tone was very cheerful. So fast. At the same time, Shenyazi felt that he had established a connection with this small world. The space no longer trembles. But that's not right, this small world is going to collapse because of external forces. Even if she becomes the master here, she can't stop it, right? Kayaki, of course you can't stop it. It's all thanks to me. In short, it's enough for you to know that I stopped the space from collapsing. As for how to do it, you don't know. Shenyazi. Once again, he was determined to press this to the ground and rub it. By the way, how many points is a world bead worth? Compared with those heavenly materials and earthly treasures, boundary beads are much more high-end. Definitely a treasure among treasures. Originally, I wanted to fool this situation, but now it seems that it is no longer possible. The master of the trial is not stupid after all. Congratulations, you have now collected enough points to buy half of the first level of space. Can you give me a specific number? 2 million. 2 million points is half? Shenyazi felt like he was going to have a myocardial infarction. If she hadn't gotten a world bead by chance this time, she didn't know when she would earn the 2 million points. Where will she get the remaining 2 million? Hey, maybe you'll be lucky enough to encounter a world bead next time. Come on, I'm optimistic about you. Having said that, Kinkaiu's tone clearly indicated that she was looking for a good show. Shenyazi has never lost when he quarrels with others, haha, let me lend you some good words. I am so lucky, I guess the next world pearl is not far away. Kinkaiu, it's a blessing to encounter one. Do you really think that the world pearl is just a cabbage, waiting for you to pick it up? Why is the face of this trial master so big? Shenyazi stretched out his fingers as white and tender as green onions and flicked them. How about we make a bet? Bet on whether I can encounter the next boundary bead. If you lose, change back to your original form and let me press me down on the ground and rub it. If I lose, you have to promise me something if you lose, Kinkaiu rushed to say. As for what it was about, he hadn't thought about it yet. But this does not prevent him from asking for a death-free gold medal for himself first. Okay. Kinkaiu snorted inwardly. This woman is really arrogant. There are many small worlds in this world, but the world beads will only appear when the small worlds are annihilated. This time she just happened to catch up. If it hadn't been for the unreasonable existence of Emperor Li, even if she could find the boundary pearl before the small world was annihilated, she wouldn't have been able to catch it. Does she think such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is always available? Kinkaiu despised Shenyazi in his heart. But why do I always feel uneasy? Shenyazi glanced at the dragon chair. Li Wang was giving the initiation to Nian Nian. She asked Yi Chang, how long will the initiation take? It depends on the situation. It can be as short as a few quarters of an hour or as long as a few hours. This is related to the strength of the initiate. Shen Yi understands, the stronger the strength, the longer it will last. Taking advantage of this time, she happened to walk around. In this turn, she almost turned into a lemon essence. Behind the main hall is a large complex of buildings including sleeping halls, side halls, side halls, side halls, etc. They are connected by corridors and separated by gardens, pavilions, pools, and other scenery. It was as if an entire palace had been moved in. She randomly chose a palace and walked in, only to find that the steps are bright green emerald. The door curtain is made of dazzling pearls. The window screen is made of crocodile gauze worth every inch of brocade. The red coral basin, which is as tall as a person, is filled with dazzling gems of various colors. If that was all, it would at most make her feel like an emperor and rich. However, the warehouse is full of spiritual stones, heavenly materials, earthly treasures, and magic weapons. Are you kidding her? Yu Chang is well informed and not as excited as she is. Emperor Li has been the emperor for so many generations, so it's normal to have these accumulations. Shen Yizi thinks that Nian Nian took the heroine script, right? The bloodline is that of a phoenix, the ancestor is the founding emperor, the father is the lord of a region, and the mother is the princess of the previous dynasty. After inheriting these inheritances, it is almost impossible to reach the peak of life in minutes. You're not bad either, you've discovered a small world on this trip, Yi Chang comforted her. Yes, it was a small world worth 2 million points, and she was lucky enough. However, looking at the randomly piled spiritual stones, her eyes were still a little unable to extricate themselves. Forget it, after all, these are not your own, so it's better to keep them out of sight. Shen Yizi continued to wander around, wanting to see if there was anything else here that could open her eyes. Then, she saw a phoenix. The body is as big as a room, with plump and gorgeous wings, each of which is a work of art. Its body is smooth and beautiful as if covered with a layer of fire, but it has no breath of life. This is a dead phoenix. In just a moment, she guessed the identity of this phoenix. Is this the true form of Emperor Li? That's right, the same breath. Even though he is dead now, the body has been here for who knows how many years, but the aura that remains on his body is still astonishing, and it burns her skin as if it is about to explode before she even gets close. It's hard to imagine how dazzling he was when he was still alive. Seeing the dead phoenix, Shen Yizi's mood suddenly dropped, and he didn't have the intention to continue shopping, so he simply returned to the front hall. The initiation was still going on. Shen Yizi randomly found a place to sit cross-legged and practice quietly. When she entered here, she discovered that the aura in this small world was much richer than outside. If the density of the aura outside was 1 unit, then the density here was 5 units. Although it was not comparable to the one in her space, but it's pretty good too. Before practicing, her spiritual consciousness penetrated into the space and asked Xiaoxi to cook a meal for the 2 children every 4 hours. She was afraid that without her watching, the 2 children would completely lose their temper and wouldn't even be able to eat. Of course, they will not starve themselves. If they are hungry, they will find snacks for themselves. But how can snacks be as filling and nutritious as serious meals? The time for cultivation always passed quickly, and Shen Yi was immersed in it without even realizing it. But she still remembered Nian Nian, and after a while, she reminded herself to wake up. How long has it been? She asked Yi Chang. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 268. 3 days. What, it's been 3 days, Shen Yizi didn't feel it at all. No wonder the seniors said that cultivation takes no time, but they don't deceive me. I don't know if Master and the others will be worried about her since she hasn't been back for 3 days. She has now become the master of this space, and entering and exiting it is a matter of thought, without the need for any external objects. But she was worried that something might happen to Nian Nian, so she decided to stay here until she woke up. If there is any movement over there, Nian Nian, wake me up immediately. Shen Yizi told Yi Chang to continue practicing. 10 days later, Yu Chang woke her up. Shen Yizi quickly stopped and looked up. Li Wang has already retracted his hand, but Nian Nian still has her eyes closed, receiving and digesting. He put down Nian Nian and walked down the steps. Can you cook? Shen Yizi was stunned for a moment. Yes. Cook me a meal. Li Wang sat down casually leaning against a pillar, with his long legs slightly bent and one hand resting on his arched knees, giving him a relaxed and unrestrained look. Shen Yizi took out the ever-burning cauldron and ingredients and prepared a sumptuous meal in the shortest possible time. She took out a pair of bowls and chopsticks and placed them in front of Emperor Li. Give me some food. He acted like an emperor sitting back and waiting to be served. Shen Yizi did not feel insulted at all, and even felt very honored. You know, this is the Phoenix. As a mortal, shouldn't she feel honored to serve the Phoenix boss? She happily picked up the jade chopsticks and served him food. Li Wang enjoyed her service calmly, and his posture seemed calm and elegant. However, the speed really frightened her. The speed at which she laid out the dishes could not match the speed at which he ate. Later on, he simply disliked her and refused to let her do the cooking. He did it himself. He also ordered, "Keep doing it." Yes. What the boss says is whatever it is. Then until Nian Nian woke up, Shen Yizi never stopped. Li Wangsun is to eat a meal into a flowing mat. But considering his body shape, Shen Yizi felt it was natural. He is a mythical beast, how can he not have a big appetite? Although she was curious about where he ate the food. After all, he is a divine soul now and does not have a physical body at all. Yi Chang said, "You also said that he is a big boss, so there is no doubt about the boss's strength. The moment he eats the food, all the food is converted into spiritual energy by him." Shen Yizi, well, she still has little knowledge. She still needs to digest it for a while after eating the spiritual food, but the boss does not need this process at all. As soon as Nian Nian woke up, she smelled the strong fragrance, ran over from the dragon chair, sat at the low table and started eating. Eat deliciously and fiercely. Shen Yizi brought a freshly cooked roast chicken to the table. "Nian Nian, how do you feel now?" Hungry, she took the whole roasted chicken with her little hands and ate it. Li Wang's outstretched hand paused in mid-air. Little girl, actually competing for food with an ancestor like him? Are there any rules anymore? His eyes were staring at the roast chicken in Nian Nian's hand very forcefully. However, Nian Nian only has food in her eyes at the moment and doesn't care about him at all. Shen Yizi immediately turned around, "I'll make another one." Li Wang and Nian Nian, the two big eaters together, are not a simple one. Add one. Shen Yizi feels that his inventory is worrying. And although Chang Ran Ding is very convenient, cooking all the time makes her very tired, right? But can she say something but not do it? Cannot. If the boss hadn't helped her find the boundary pearl before, how could she have gotten such a huge advantage? Even for Jiju's sake, she had to take good care of the boss. By the time the two of them were finally satisfied with their meal, Shen Yizi was so tired that he couldn't even lift his fingers, and his cooking movements were all mechanical. Completely formed conditioned reflex. She feels like she doesn't want to cook anymore for a long time. Li Wang put down his chopsticks and looked at Shen Yizi. "I wish I could have met you earlier." Shen Yizi almost fell to the ground. "Brother, what you said makes people think too much." But combined with the piles of empty plates on the table, she knew what he meant was that it was a pity that he didn't meet someone like her who could cook for him earlier. The man who had eaten and drank satiatedly leaned against the pillar and waved to her, "Come here." Shen Yizi stepped forward obediently. Then the boss skillfully tapped her on the forehead. Shen Yizi instantly felt a domineering and hot spark rushing into her body. It was as aggressive as a meteor, using her meridians as a racing track. It crashed into her dantian domineeringly and wildly, and then became completely proud and proud. Disgust took over. God knows how she felt such complicated emotions from a little spark. This is She opened her mouth and a puff of smoke came out. Remuneration for eating, Li Huanghun said nonchalantly. At this time, Yu Chang had already let out a series of prairie dog screams, Fen Yuan. He gave you his Fen Yuan. Fen Yuan? It is the origin of the phoenix, that is, his natal fire. With this fire, you will be very powerful in the future. Yu Chang was envious and jealous. Why was he not so lucky? The fire of the innate beast comes to your door. What kind of luck is this? The Liwang who contributed Fenjai Yuan's originally solid soul instantly became lighter. I can finally leave this hellish place. He smiled for the first time since they met. Without even looking at Shen Yizi and Nian Nian, they faded into nothingness. Nian Nian, who had been immersed in eating, seemed to realize something. She turned her head and stared at the direction where he disappeared for a while, with a teardrop falling from her big eyes. The drops fell on the roast chicken in her hand and soaked in it. Shen Yizi took her into his arms and said, "Don't cry, your ancestors have been liberated. They have gone to the underworld, the same place your mother went to. We will also go there in the future. We will be reunited then, maybe we can get together for a hot pot meal." Nian Nian wiped her eyes with her oily little paws. Why was she crying? It must be because the roast chicken cooked by Aunt Chen is so delicious. When she was initiated, it was as if she had experienced everything that Emperor Li had ever experienced. It felt like hundreds of years had passed. In other words, she had not eaten Aunt Chen's cooking for hundreds of years. Now that it's finally out, of course she has to make up for it. Shen Yizi saw her smearing her face like a kitten, smiled, and wiped it clean for her. "Hey, Nian Nian, have you grown up? The sleeves and trouser legs are both shorter." She asked Nian Nian to stand up and straighten her arms and legs. It turned out that she had indeed grown taller. Initiation also has the effect of promoting growth. Yi Chang, Nian Nian is already dozens of years old. It's just because she was trapped in the soul-suppressing array and couldn't get support that she never grew up. After she came out, she was fed and fed by you every day. Isn't it just one day at a time? Now that she has been empowered by her ancestors, her strength must have increased, and it is normal for her to grow up. I see. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 269. Shen Yizi put Nian Nian into new clothes that fit her, and soon a pink and tender little fairy emerged. My Nian Nian is so good looking, she will definitely charm countless boys in the future, but Nian Nian must keep her eyes peeled and not be easily deceived by those boys. If there's nothing delicious, no one can cheat it. Nian Nian grabbed another piece of steak and fried it. Ha ha ha, you little snack, Shen Yizi poked her fleshy cheek. When Nian Nian had almost finished eating, Shen Yizi took her to Liwang's body, kowtowed to him 3 times, offered him a stick of incense, and offered some fruits and snacks. Nian Nian, although you haven't been with your ancestor for long, he has imparted all his lifelong strength and experience to you. I am a great favor to you. Remember to visit him often in the future and give him more. Give him some delicious food so that he won't be hungry in the netherworld. Hungry is probably the most terrifying thing in the world for Nian Nian. Feeling the same, she sympathized with her ancestors who went to the netherworld and nodded in agreement. Liwang, who was being treated as a guest in the netherworld, looked at the table of food that suddenly appeared in front of him. His mind moved, connected with yin and yang, and heard what Shen Yizi told Nian Nian. He suddenly said, "Does he think he is a poor man in her eyes? Can't even afford food?" But he was quite happy to still be able to enjoy her offerings in the underworld. Sitting opposite is a man in red, who is the king of Hades here. It looks delicious, can you share some with me? If Shen Yizi were here, he would definitely recognize that this man was the one he met in Langcheng during the Ghost Festival. After paying homage to his ancestors, Shen Yizi took Nian Nian around the entire Fanqi Palace and asked her to inspect the huge inheritance she had obtained. These will all be for Nian Nian from now on. Are you happy with Nian Nian? However, Nian Nian's heart was unmoved. These things were not as attractive to her as a chicken leg. Give it all to Aunt Shen. Shen Yizi was extremely moved. You must know that these are the treasures accumulated by the Li Emperor, who is a phoenix and has been the emperor for more than a dozen times. Even though she couldn't keep calm in front of these treasures, yet Nian Nian wanted to give them all to her without blinking an eye. She had to admit that she was shamefully tempted. But she is still a person with bottom lines and principles. How could she take something belonging to a child? Aunt Shen will put these away for you first. If you want them, come to Aunt Shen anytime. You can buy a lot of delicious food here. Nian Nian tilted her head, but insisted, give it all to Aunt Shen. Aunt Shen will prepare delicious food for Nian Nian. Shen Yizi no longer argued with her on this topic, since she would just help Nian Nian put it away. When she understands what a huge fortune this is in the future, she will naturally not say such childish words. Qiankai, let's merge this small world with the God Emperor Pearl. To be precise, it is absorption. This is a small case for Qiankai. In the next moment, the entire small world becomes a part of the God Emperor Pearl. The void of Fanqi Palace has been perfectly connected with the space of the God Emperor Pearl. Shen Yizi came out of the palace with Nian Nian and appeared in his own space. Nian Nian, please stay here with your two brothers for the time being. I will release you when you get out. Okay, Nian Nian Jiansheng responded. After Shen Yizi went out, he said mysteriously to Qingbao and Yuanbao, I found a place that is particularly suitable for hide and seek. Let's go hide and seek. Hide and seek, Qingbao clapped his hands. The three little guys entered Fanqi Palace hand in hand. In their eyes, Fanqi Palace, which is full of treasures, is just a place suitable for hide and seek. When Shen Yizi came out, he was still underwater. When she surfaced, she saw a group of wild horses drinking water by the lake. Her sudden appearance caused a small commotion, but perhaps aware of her harmlessness, the wild horses changed positions and continued to drink water. She was about to find a herd of wild horses, but she didn't expect them to come to her before she even looked for them. Among the horses, there is a snow-white horse, which is a head taller than the horses next to it. The smooth back lines, the strong thighs, the slender neck. He is simply the tallest, richest, and most handsome man among horses. At first glance, he is the most beautiful cub in the whole herd. This must be the king of horses, right? Possibly sensing that he was being stared at by a malicious gaze, the white horse raised its hooves a little irritably, raised its head and neighed. As soon as this neighing sound came out, the entire herd of horses stopped drinking water and began to retreat in an organized and disciplined manner. And the white horse ran at the front, with a posture like a cloud and a speed like the wind. Shen Yizi was very moved by the sight of it. She was determined to decide on this horse. She slapped a small magical talisman on herself, and the light body technique was activated to the extreme. With a kick of her foot, her whole body flew out like a rocket. When he fell down, he tapped lightly on a horse, and then moved forward a lot, and the distance between him and the leading white horse continued to shorten. A few seconds later, Shen Yizi successfully caught up with the white horse, landed on its back, sat astride it, and cast an instant green vine technique. He quickly shot a vine out of his hand and wrapped it around the white horse's neck. The white horse suddenly raised its hooves, trying to throw her off. It's a pity that its action only intensified Shen Yizi's stranglehold on its neck. The neck was strangled and it was difficult to breathe. The white horse was in bad condition and let out a cry of pain. Thinking that the horse would be his own soon, Shen Yizi was not willing to abuse it too much, so he loosened the vines and only put them around its neck. However, once she was freed, the white horse began to struggle again, running violently, trying to knock her off. "Humph, little guy, you still want to fight me?" Shenyazi tightened the vine again. Hakuba once again felt the fear of being suffocated. After repeating this several times, it finally gave in and slowly stopped. Shenyazi jumped down happily, turned to face it, and looked into its blue eyes. Do horses have blue eyes? Could this one be a mixed race? Yi Chang, this one does contain a bit of dragon blood, but it's very thin. Then didn't she tame a white dragon horse? In the future, if you raise it carefully and give it more medicine, maybe it can awaken its true dragon bloodline. Shenyazi touched the horse's head, smoothed its fur, and fed it a spirit beast pill. As a beast, Baima's intuition is very keen. He knew that the pill in her hand was a good thing, so he swallowed it with his tongue. After taking the spirit beast pill, its attitude towards her became a little closer. Shenyazi fed it another basket of fat and tender grass produced in the space, and the horse began to lick the palm of her hand. From now on, you will be called Bailong. Let's go, Bailong, and take me for 2 more laps. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 270. Shenyazi bought a saddle from the grocery store, put it on Bailong, and got on it again. Previously I only focused on taming it, and I haven't fully experienced the feeling of galloping. Run, she gently pinched the horse's belly. The white dragon moved forward vigorously and jumped several meters away. When running, its texture seems to be flowing, strong and toned. Although it is as fast as the wind, it is very smooth and not bumpy at all. Shenyazi felt the wind blowing across his cheeks. His long hair was blown up, and some of it hit his face. The green meadows are connected together, with undulating heights, like a rolling green wave. The horses followed behind the white dragon, their hooves galloping with great momentum. At this moment, Shenyazi felt so happy that he couldn't help but open his arms to the wind and let out a long roar towards the mountain, "Aw dash!" Her voice continued to echo in the valley, and it stopped after a while. According to Bailong's speed, it actually took him half an hour to complete 1 lap, which clearly shows how large the area of this valley is. And there are no too tall trees in the valley. At a glance, it is all rolling, thick and soft meadows. Isn't a place like this a natural horse farm? At that time, with a little repair, there will be a racecourse, a polo field, a kaju arena and so on. If one is not enough, then get a few more. Anyway, we and the money are not bad. When Shenyazi came down the mountain, she saw Huza leading people to build a road in the hunting ground she had designated. Has the progress actually reached this point? She walked over to Huza to understand the situation and found that she had spent several days in the small world, but only 3 days had passed outside. It seemed that the flow of time in the small world was different from that outside. In the past 3 days, the main part of the villa has been built, the water pavilion in Tianzhou Lake has also been completed, and the hunting ground is now being built. Shenyazi has to give a thumbs up for this progress. She took out a pile of talismans and seals and handed them to the monks accompanying the construction team. Don't skimp on the talismans and seals. Use them when necessary to reduce everyone's workload as much as possible. This monk's name is Tu Cheng, and he is one of Xiaoming's subordinates. He took the talismans with excitement and said, "Yes, don't worry, girl, I will make reasonable use of these talismans." After coming down from the mountain, Shenyazi went directly to the villa and visited it inside and out. It is only the preliminary construction, and the subsequent decoration and layout are major projects. But she believed that Xiaosan would do well. This pavilion next to the bamboo forest is used as a piano room. In this maple forest, there is an ancient wooden building that is used as a chess room. This 3-story building in the shape of a Chinese character is used as a study. Shenyazi planned the functions of various buildings along the way. Xiao San kept it in mind silently. "Girl, "What do you think of a good name for the villa?" Xiao-san asked when they came to the gate. "Well, let's call it Minjia Villa." Shen Yizi thought for a while and said. After dinner, she asked Xiao-san to gather all the people involved in the construction outside the yard. She took a look at the faces of everyone. Compared with when they came, they almost changed their appearance. Of course, this was limited to Amu and other slaves. As for people like Xiaoming, they have changed, but they have become fatter. I heard that they have to eat at least 3 large bowls of rice every day. The rice bowl is like a small basin. It is considered good for ordinary people to eat 1/2 of a rice bowl. Their appetite is almost 6 to 7 times that of normal people. Luckily she manages enough food, otherwise there really wouldn't be enough for these man-made things. They all looked like soldiers waiting for review. They stood upright, looking forward, and there was a sense of nervousness in their seriousness. Shen Yizi smiled and said, "Don't be nervous, everyone. Come and sit down. Just be casual. I don't have so many rules here." She took the lead and sat down on the grass. Seeing that they were still hesitant to move, she added, "What, do you want me to talk to you with my neck raised?" In an instant, everyone sat down. As soon as we sat down, everyone felt more relaxed. "It's been a while since we all have been here. Are you still used to the life here?" Shen Yizi asked as if he was talking about home. Everyone replied, "I'm used to it. I'm so used to it. It's like falling into a nest of blessings. I couldn't even imagine such a good life before." "Well, just get used to it. It's been a lot of hard work for you in building the villa these days. I'm here to thank you all." Shen Yizi stood up and bowed to everyone. This moment frightened everyone. It was their duty to do things for her, not to mention the treatment was so good. Even if she wanted to thank her, it was only they who thanked her. How could it be her turn to express her gratitude to them? However, what everyone didn't expect was that what surprised them was yet to come. Verbal gratitude is not worth anything, you have to give something practical, so I plan to teach you these 2 exercises so that you can practice them. As her strength increases in the future, she will be able to better carry out construction work for her. 2 booklets appeared in Shen Yizi's hand. As soon as she said this, everyone was stunned. It is understandable that they feel a little shocked inside, but if they are shocked, they will get used to it. Shen Yizi shook the booklet in his hand. One is called The Secret of Subduing the Dragon, which is suitable for men to practice, and the other is The Secret of the Blue Bird, which is suitable for women to practice. Both of these books are exercises for body training. Here is the aura. It's so thin that it's not easy to take the path of spiritual cultivation, but as for physical cultivation, as long as you can keep up with the cultivation resources, it's relatively easy to get started. And she lacks resources? Of course not. You can pass it around to each other. Shen Yizi took out a few more transcripts and distributed them to different people for them to circulate. Xiaoming couldn't wait to open The Secret of Subduing the Dragon as soon as he got it. He can be said to be the most knowledgeable among the group of people. After turning a few pages, he knew how precious this book The Secret of Subduing the Dragon was. The level of the skill is definitely not low. Even if we get the imperial capital, there will probably be looting. There is also the blue bird technique, which is definitely no less effective than the dragon subduing technique. However, Shen Yizi took it out so easily, and even took out 2 books at once, as if he only gave 2 crappy booklets. He felt that his 3 outlooks had been greatly impacted. "Boss, have you finished reading it? Give us a quick look after you've finished reading it." As the number 1 younger brother, Tu Cheng came over. On the other side, Amu and others were holding the brochure and almost fainted with excitement. However, they soon discovered a tragic fact, that is, they couldn't read. "I don't even know the words, so I can't understand what's written on it, let alone practice." A group of people in the slave camp were extremely depressed. Shen Yizi naturally noticed it, but since she asked them to practice, she would naturally help them solve their literacy problem.